Welcome back once again, and as we embarked at the beginning over the topic of that concerning the American-Iranian confrontation that has been going on for a long time, the negotiating table and rounds of negotiation in order to reach a halt to the exchange of fire, a ceasefire, a permanent one or a temporary, but then the whole world is at stake and is waiting in anticipation for something that would create a compromise. Of course, statements were given by President Donald Trump that if the Strait of Hormuz is not opened near soon, then the United States is going to strike Iran like it never did before. And also he gave those statements after the Secretary of State Marco Rubio and the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, they both said that talks had progressed to allow the shipments to flow through the water tunnel that is the Strait of Hormuz, and a lot of other escalations were taking place. Very delighted to be having with us here live in the studio our prominent guest, Dr. Ahmad, the Professor of International Relations. Good morning, Dr. Ishaq.
Good morning. It's an honor to be here with you.
It's a real pleasure to have you. We're going to go to a quick report first, and we'll come back to you, so stay with us.
President Donald Trump said a deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz could take place soon. This as Iran and Oman inch towards an agreement on the critical waterway that could ease pressure on the global economy and potentially help bring an end to the war. The U.S. along with Israel launched the war on February 28th, citing various goals, including ending Iran's nuclear program. However, the conflict had devolved into a fight over the strait as Iranian threats and attacks on shipping ground traffic through the waterway to a whole strait, which, if of the world's oil and natural gas once passed, had driven up the price of fuel and basic goods far beyond the region, roiling the global economy. Trump is also mounting pressure to end an unpopular war ahead of midterm congressional elections. Oil prices initially eased on hopes of a deal that would allow shipping to resume, but later inched upward. Brent was around $80 per barrel, still well below the levels it hit at the height of the conflict. The U.S. and Iran reached a deal to open the strait in June only for attacks to resume. In response, Trump has again threatened massive strikes and voiced support for diplomatic efforts.
I'm very delighted to be having with us here live in the studio Dr. Ahmad is a professor of international relations. Good morning, Dr. Ishaq.
Good morning.
Are you following up escalations like everybody else? The U.S.-Iranian escalations, and nobody knows when it's going to be resolved. But then talking about the statements that were released by Donald Trump, the U.S. President, and his Secretary of State and his Treasury Secretary, they released the same statements and they spread optimism, but then they become controversial the next day. They talk the opposite. So how do you justify this? Where exactly is the problem? Since the negotiating table is open and there are mediators who are ready to mediate, and there is clear understanding from the other side, they're ready to negotiate. Where exactly is the problem?
For sure, as you mentioned now, that American President Donald Trump is facing a very hard times now. Especially, we are for about 4 or 5 months in this war with no final solution, without reaching a permanent ceasefire. We had a truce, and after that we get back to the war. After that we had a memorandum of understanding between U.S. and Iran, and after that we the war. And there is a negotiation in order to reach an agreement. For sure, we would that the American administration is facing very many challenges due to this war, because on the first side there is a huge rise of oil prices, the blockade of Strait of Hormuz that Iranian had made since the beginning of this war had raised the prices of oil, had raised the amount of inflation in the whole international market, and especially also the American market. And also there is we would face the Congress election after less than 3 months, next November, and all of that, and we would find the polls and in the American polls that the Republican would lose one or both of their majorities on both chambers of the of Congress and Senate. So all of this would make up a huge pressure on the American administration and the U.S. President Donald Trump in order to reach a final solution for this dispute, in order to open the Strait of Hormuz as soon as possible. On the other side, there is a huge problem or a huge challenge that what is the cost of reaching such a solution with the Iranian? The Iranians are playing with this card very good. We would conclude that they wouldn't accept the opening of Strait of Hormuz and the free passage of the Strait of Hormuz for vessels and ships without getting a compensation for this war. Is that it would be taking their or freeing their assets in the U.S. and Western countries, or something else they would earn, like they would take charges for the passage of vessels and ships from Strait of Hormuz. So as a result, there is the cost of reaching such agreement with the Iranian it's a very high cost for the American administration, because accepting any kind of these conditions means that the Iranian they are the winner of this war, because before this war there was a free passage, no conditions for the passage from Strait of Hormuz. But now by this moment we are facing a different situation. That means that the Iranians are controlling the situation in Strait of Hormuz, who would pass or who would cross through the Strait of Hormuz, and what is the condition for the passage of this of the Strait of Hormuz. So the final situation, we would analyze that the American U.S. President Donald Trump are facing two controversial situations. First of them, that the desire or the international desire to reach a final solution and end this war as soon as possible, and on the other side, what is the cost of reaching of such an agreement with the Iranian. So there is that's the situation by this moment.
Right. But then there were statements that were talking in a very optimistic way, that was taken by the President himself, and also the Secretary of State and the Treasury Secretary and all that. So do you think that these statements these optimistic statements are indicating anything positive?
For sure, it would be a sign for trying to reach a kind of agreement with the Iranian. Especially, we had 2 days before, Iran and Oman had announced that they had reached an agreement for the passing and the crossing of vessels, ships through Strait of Hormuz. This kind of agreement would be a sign for reaching a kind of agreement for opening the Strait of Hormuz as soon as possible, especially that the Iranian had announced that this agreement would be effective unless a third party would stop this agreement. So it would be known or would be noticed that we would expect that the American administration would reach a kind of agreement in order to open the Strait of Hormuz in the next few days in order to reduce the pressure on the American on the oil prices that make a pressure on the American market and American consumers.
Right. The nature of the Omani mediation this time, you mentioned Oman, and there is probably there are some developments, some progress in the rounds of mediation and rounds of negotiations. How exactly do you assess the Omani round?
We would note that the negotiation between Iran and Oman in order to open the Strait of Hormuz, as they are considered the both sides of the Strait of Hormuz, and they are both controlling the passage and the crossing through the Strait of Hormuz. The negotiation had announced that both of them had reached an agreement in order to make an arrangement for the crossing and the passing through Strait of Hormuz. This agreement would depend on two main points. First of them, that the entrance of vessels and ships would be near the coast of near the coast of the Iranian and under the auspices of the Iranian, and the exit of vessels and ships through Strait of Hormuz would be near the Omanian coast and under the auspices of Oman and Iranian also. It would be a very important point. That means that this agreement that had been reached between the Iranian and Omanian means that the Iranian would have a full control or would follow up all the vessels that would enter the Strait of Hormuz, and on the other side also all vessels that would exit the Strait of Hormuz would be under the auspices and under the follow-up of Oman and Iranian also. That's the first point. And the second point that had been noticed, that there will be charges for crossing and passing of Strait of Hormuz, and it's a very it would be totally a new situation, and would be a result of this war, that there will be charging to pass and cross Strait of Hormuz, and that is something that hadn't been there before this war. So as a result, we would note that a new situation would be existed on the ground on the Strait of Hormuz, according to the agreement between Oman and Iran. But now we would wait what is the American situation for this situation. Would they accept this agreement or not? We would wait and would saw what would happen in the next few days.
Right. Talking about something that would ease the stress a little bit. For example, talking about the Strait of Hormuz. Since the Strait of Hormuz is that much of a conflict, do you think that opening the Strait of Hormuz will ease tension between the U.S. and Iran, and will cease fire, and will release all the hostilities, and will take us to another peaceful end? Will it, in other words, will the Strait of Hormuz end it all, or there are could be other issues?
For sure, there is a lot of issues that that make this conflict are very complicated. We would note that there is a very main important point, which is the Iranian atomic program, which is one of the main reasons for this war. So what would be a solution for this program, this atomic program, this nuclear program? So for sure there is many other points of dispute, point of conflict between both sides, like also the proxies in the region, like Hezbollah, Houthi, and others, and also in their proxies in Iraq. So for sure there are many others conditions, many other points of negotiation that would that need to reach a solution between Iran and United States of America in order to reach a final solution for this dispute and a permanent ceasefire. But for sure, this kind of permanent solution would take much time. We are not sure if they would reach a kind of compromise in all of these files, because there is a huge differences between both sides on all of these terms. The gap between them are very huge. So it's one of the main notes that expecting a final and permanent solution and reaching a permanent ceasefire would take much time. We are only, as we noted in the last few months, we are reaching only truce or only a temporary ceasefire. We would find a temporary free and opening the Strait of Hormuz for a specific period of time until we would back forth for any kind of dispute between both parties, and we would that would lead for blocking the Strait of Hormuz again, and after a period of time we would reach a kind of compromise, a temporary compromise to open Strait of Hormuz. So the conclusion is we are till this moment we are not expecting, or we are not facing a final agreement between United States of America and Iran. We would not expect the kind of this agreement or a final or a permanent ceasefire between both parties until we would reach a compromise for all of the terms of the dispute between both sides.
Right. Let us go back again to the Omani table, this round, the Omani round. It originally started in Evian, and there was a memorandum of understanding that was signed, and there were certain points and conditions that both sides signed and everything. Does the Omani round comply with those different points? What does it contradict with, or what does it comply with? Assessing the Omani round.
Yeah, for sure. The Oman round and the primitive agreement between Oman and Iran, this agreement is complying with the memorandum of understanding by opening Strait of Hormuz, as it is one of the main points of the memorandum of understanding, and this new agreement. But it contradicts the memorandum of understanding in one is the charges for the passing and crossing of vessels through Strait of Hormuz it's a new term of the agreement, and that is in contradiction with memorandum of understanding that had mentioned the free crossing and passing of vessels and ships in the through Strait of Hormuz. So it would be for sure it's comply in a general that it's working for the opening the Strait of Hormuz, the passing of vessels through it, but the new term is charging the vessels fees or charges for the crossing and passage. It's something that would be in a contradiction with the memorandum of understanding.
Right. Of course, we totally understand by now. We've become very familiar that with every statement that is released by the American president or by the Iranian leaders, there is a rise in the oil prices and the energy and supply chains are halting and all that. But do you think by now, and we have come familiar with what's happening, and it is a repetition of events once again, and the violation of agreements and all that, it is becoming stable? It won't be affected by statements, it won't be affected by relapse of agreements. I mean, the economic condition would become stay at a plateau level or a stable level, in spite of all the controversy that is going on and all the hurdles and all the things that are coming in between us and a good compromise? Or with every relapse there is going to be an economic relapse?
Yeah, it's a very important question for sure, because as we faced for the last few months, the oil prices, the economy, the whole international economy had faced a huge fluctuation due to any kind of war and of the tension between both parties. That before this war, the oil prices was about $69 for every barrel, and during this war it had reached about $120 for a while. So, but now for this moment we are talking about it's in the 80s of the 80s, between 80 and 90 for each barrel, the oil prices, and each so as a result, because we would notice that the whole market, the whole economy, the oil prices are getting higher by any kind of tension, by any by increasing the sign of war between United States and Iran due to present situation of the blockage of Strait of Hormuz is because due to that more than 20% of the oil of the whole international oil vessels are crossing through this Strait of Hormuz. So the blockade of Strait of Hormuz are affecting has a direct effect on the international economy, the American economy, by raising the oil prices. As we notice now, it's had been raised for more than 30% since the beginning of this war. So it's very we would note that it's this war would as soon as this war is gone on, the oil price would still in a higher and higher prices more than the expected prices before the war. So as a result, it's familiar to expect that the prices would be raised side by side with the war, and the escalation had been raised, and the tension would be exist.
There are other regional crises, of course, very understandable that there are other regional crises that are part and parcel of this crisis, which is the crisis in Lebanon and the crisis in Gaza. The crisis in Gaza have been frozen, or not frozen the crisis, but the peace deal has been frozen because of what's happening inside Iran and what's happening inside South Lebanon. So it has affected it negatively. What about Lebanon? And is it going to be directly affected if there is a relapse, or if there is a progress and condition, or Israel has its own agenda and won't comply with the changes that would happen inside Iran?
For sure, one of the main important conditions of the Iranian one of the main points of the Iranian agreement is peace for all areas, or no peace for all. That,
right.
That means that reaching a peaceful solution and a final ceasefire for Iran, south of Lebanon, and Gaza, and all the Middle East, or no peace for all. Right. That means that the Iranians are requiring
right.
strongly.
Unfortunately, we ran out of time.
Okay.
It would take us episodes and episodes, but we'll leave you on a promise that you can kindly come over to Good Morning Egypt, and we could discuss further information about this very complicated crisis between the U.S. and Iran. I would like to thank you so much, Dr. Ahmad Ishaq, Professor of International Relations. It has been a great pleasure giving us your valuable